I think that's the overall.
More friends you'll find.
That's exactly right. Let's see. Write down some more notes for the show. Well, I think Janet can join us when she joins us. Let me get chat here. Hello, Crowboy. Jesus, Crowboy. Fast as a son of a
Speediest in the
gun.
West.
My God. Okay, let's just get this show on the road. Hello, everybody. Welcome to a new episode of Party Chat, our community Q&A for everybody at that Min-Max Council tier. Thank you all for directly supporting the show. A little behind-the-scenes look each and every week directly for you, coming out of our mouths, directly into your ears. That feels more intimate than I want it to be. I'm Ben Hansen, joined by Haley McLean.
Hello.
Hello. And Janet Garcia.
Hello.
Ba-ba-ba-ba-bum. Welcome, everybody. We have some questions that were submitted over there on Patreon from people at the Min-Max Council tier, but obviously everybody who's joining us live, you can throw your hand in the air and we can get to your question as well, or flick your hand on and off if you want to specifically join the conversation that we're having. But big Thanksgiving week here from Min-Max, everybody.
Gobble gobble.
Gobbly. It's kind of a funky week. We're trying to pack it all in. I want to say it's a funky week, but then it's like, well, we normally just record all of our stuff on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday anyway. So I guess maybe it's not too drastic, but everybody's schedule's pretty funky on Wednesday, and so trying to line up the podcast as we speak, and it's a little bit of a...
It's probably funky in your brain because you're thinking of 12 people's schedules.
It really is. It is a weird thing to try and schedule so much stuff every week, and it's not. I'm not complaining, to be fair, but it is a weird thing to try and balance where everybody's at. And the part that'll really kick you in the butt, Haley, is like trying to figure out. And I guess I won't cite anybody in particular, but like trying to figure out that tone at times where it's like, yeah, I'm free this morning, I can do it, but I have something else going on later that day that's big, and it's like, okay. Great. And how stressed out will that person get if we do try to make the best show by optimizing on that schedule? Do you know what I'm talking about, Janet? Of like, there's the thing of like, yeah, I'm free at this time and I want to volunteer because I'm free to record at this time, but also it will make my day worse, but I'm not saying that quiet part out loud, you know?
Yeah, for me it's always just like, I don't know, taking things at face value. Like obviously some
Right.
people might not be as honest about that as maybe they want, like, but like also like, is it a lie if you yourself believe it, right? I think
Great
sometimes
question,
people,
Costanza. Yeah.
I genuinely think sometimes people don't feel like they're being dishonest because they like think they think something. It's kind of like you ever ask somebody, hey, should I do A or B? And then, well, I'm sure actually this probably happens to you all the time, but should I do A or B? And they say A, and then you're like, actually, I think I want B. And you didn't know that until you had that conversation
Totally.
sometimes. So, like, for me, like, because I'll do that to you, like, plenty of times. I'm like, I'm free, but, like, and I usually just try to be a little bit more transparent. Like, if you need me, I'm down, but, like, if you don't,
Yeah.
like, I'm cool with that because I have other things, like, I'm available if needed, but if I'm not needed, like, maybe don't call me up because I
Right.
could sit out or something. Like,
Yeah. Have you
I
ever...
don't know. I feel like that's up to you to, if you'd want specific language around it, I think you can say that and people would do it, but...
Yeah, I think on that A or B thing, it made me think of like, I'd never heard this, but I think it's a really interesting thing of, say you're making a big life decision. My wife recently referenced this. And it's a matter of like, okay, if it's a 50-50 thing in your head, assign it to a coin. This is heads, this is tails. Flip that coin, and that will make you realize what you're rooting for.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like,
I've heard
ooh,
that
that is
before,
a good little cheat. But speaking of your schedule and stuff, Janet, congrats on being on Remap Radio for the last 3 episodes in a row.
Yeah.
Whoa.
That's cool. How does that
Thanks.
feel to be on another gaming podcast?
It's exciting. I love, like, I don't know, doing something new with people, and then I've admired their work for like a really long time. So it's like I haven't had the like that feeling again of, oh my god, like this group that I really admire like actually respects my work. Like that's weird. Like I had that with you when you were like, hey, like what would you think about joining Min-Max? I was like, oh yeah, like absolutely. Like, and I pretended to think about it because you were like, take your time. I was like, I don't need to think about this, but I'm like, sure, you
Long
know,
walk
like
on the beach, yeah.
yeah, exactly. Like, oh, you don't want to look too like excited because then it's like, okay, whoa, now it's like maybe I don't want you here.
No, it's funny, and I don't know, this is a weird compliment to give, but I listen to Remap Radio, and there are times like I'm always jealous of every other podcast at all times. I always feel like, oh, they got us on this, they got us on this. Like I was on the Friends Per Second podcast recently. Scandal noted, but I was on that podcast recently. That was a reference to the Gerard the Completionist stuff, yada yada yada, which we can talk about if you want to, chat. But no, and so I was on that podcast recently, and I think it was like when we weren't recording, but just I let them know that like that's truly one of the podcasts I listen to, and every episode I listen to, I feel like punching a wall because like, God, they got us. This is a better podcast than the Min-Max show this week, or like the Game Informer show I listen to every week, and sometimes I'm like, oh, they got a better conversation about this game than we did this week. They got us, which is probably a weird competitive angle to have, but it's a friendly competition. The point is, Janet, I listen to you on Remap Radio, and there are times where it's like, oh, they're bringing so much more life out of Janet, and I take it as a personal failure. Maybe just the amount of like Chicago talk that happened in the first couple episodes, but it's like, God damn it, like they're really getting some good Janet content, and it's a failure that we have dropped the ball. We should be talking about Chicago on every episode of the Midnight Show, I think.
Yeah, that's what I always say. Is it weird hearing then also, which is funny because you slacked me, this is like this is kind of the point of the show, right? Behind the scenes where you're like, oh, like, heard your remap, like you did a great job. And then I'm like, oh, like, it's funny, like having you listen because it's like, I also like work with you, like / for you. So then it's like, oh, it's like, I don't know how to explain that, but it's like this weird thing in a sense. But then do you notice one when I say like the same kind of thing, and then do you notice two like, oh well, you had this like specific anecdote that you didn't like say here, like you know what I mean?
I
like,
do.
What is that? Are you like constantly?
Maybe this is weird. Your discussion about Baldur's Gate 3 on the podcast, I skipped because I was like, I don't want to know.
Well, yeah, you hate Baldur's Gate 3. We all know this already.
Oh no, this is feeding.
Okay, just everyone clip this out. See, if you guys don't care about a game, you can just skip ahead. Like you don't need to, at least. Well, Ben, I'm surprised you told me this directly and not just on YouTube.com.
Yeah. No, but like
I hate when Jen talks about. Oh my God.
No, but the point was like I don't want to know because you haven't really unpacked your thoughts about Baldur's Gate 3 in a big way on the podcast yet, and so it's like I don't want to get it confused in my head about like what did Janet say this here? Did she say it on the Min-Max show? So for me, I skipped that. I notice it more with Kyle, who's on the Game Informer show podcast a lot, and so I noticed that like he told a little anecdote there that would have been great to have on the Min-Max show. Like, oh, but this is not like me being mad at Kyle or anything. It's just like interesting to see like how people divvy stuff up and where they repeat stuff. And like, I thought it was interesting on in the interview we did last week with the folks from Second Wind, Yahtzee and Nick. Like, it's interesting. A lot of answers from Nick, he would preface like, oh, I was just saying on this other podcast, and then he'd answer it. Which is one of those interesting things of like, maybe that's a sign of like not being PR trained, but there's a part of me that's like, oh, that kind of bums me out. Is like, I think an audience and an interviewer where it's like, oh, here's some reheated trash for you. It's like, okay. And to be fair, I really enjoyed that interview. But it is a weird thing just like trying to save novel bits for different pieces of media. But Janet, I feel like you have to be the master of that at this point for juggling so much content everywhere on the internet.
Yeah, I mean, I don't mind personally. I get what you mean where maybe it could rub people the wrong way in a sense of like I said this here. I always preface that because one, there are people that it's not a lot, but there are definitely people that listen to like me everywhere.
Sure.
And I'm like, well, that I said this here. Like I don't want to act like you know what I mean?
I think you just have to embrace it. You just have to like, I'm not going to cite that like, oh, I mentioned this. It's a similar thing of like when people say like, oh, I just tweeted the other day, black.
Yeah.
Like it's like, you don't need to say that. You can just say your little joke. It's fine.
I like doing that because it's like the connected universe of conversation. I don't think it's nice
to Janet universe.
Yeah, I mean, like I know
it's
it's just true. Like I mean, it's not a lot of people, but there are some people where they're like, I'm kind of. You might have seen me sort of everywhere. Yeah. And then I also think it's nice to plug where I am having other conversations. Sure. And then and I'll bring in like. I think just cite things as relevant, right? I'll mention, like my colleague Sarah Prozorski said this, or like, whatever the thing might be. I feel like that is kind of the point in a way, like part of why I like doing conversations and I like streaming and I like tweeting and it's about like kind of, forming thoughts through conversation. And I feel like it is disingenuous to not acknowledge the fact that those conversations exist and happen, and they help inform my perspective that I'm now having here live with whoever the people I'm talking to are. But that's just like my perspective on it. But
Haley, no shame and no judgment, but do you listen to other gaming podcasts?
Yeah, I try to. I listen to the Game Informer show a lot. Trying to think what other ones I've been listening to. Man, mostly MinMax though.
Oh, thank
Honestly,
you.
these days, just because I have less time, especially being on MinMax now, so I have less time to like listen to other things. But yeah, I'm like I walk my dog twice a day, and then I listen to podcasts in the shower. So I naturally end up listening to at least like 45 minutes to an hour a day. So
Yeah.
it depends if I get caught up on the stuff I always listen to, and I'm like, what else? And I keep looking, kind of thing.
Yeah. What
Do you
else?
talk to us in your head? Because like when you're not on, I'm assuming you listen to the episodes you're not on, correct?
Yes, I don't listen to the episodes I'm on. I hate listening to myself on
Yeah.
the episodes I'm on. I just listen to the other ones. No, I definitely like remember it. I think it helps me when I'm on eps with y'all in the future.
Yeah.
Because like especially like you and Jacob last episode talking about Liza P. It's like now I want to talk to Janet about Liza P more. Like you know what I mean?
Right.
It's the context I don't get when I'm not in the room, so I might as well
Yeah.
listen. And then the next time we're together, it like just makes it a bit better because I'm already caught up, I guess.
Right. It's kind of fun because then you can almost like act like you were there, and then for people listening, it's like they get like a full through line because
Yeah.
you can
Exactly.
like I don't necessarily listen to every episode that I'm not on the shows that I'm affiliated with, but it is fun when you can pull back like pull in from something that you weren't on.
Yes.
Where it's like, oh, there's still like cohesion despite you not being there. Like I don't think it's, necessary, but it can be nice. For
No,
sure.
I think it's really nice for the
Yeah.
community to make it feel like one continuous quote unquote storyline. Like this is tangentially related, I guess, but like I'm really this is again, I listen to too many gaming podcasts, but I feel like so many gaming podcasts, especially for like outlets, will like toss off ideas of like, oh yeah, wouldn't it be funny if we did a show about this? Or like, okay, look forward to our big series where we're going to recap every episode of Saved by the Bell, ha ha ha, like those types of things. And I really like the idea that by and large, when somebody makes a joke like that on the MinMax show, then it's in the poll next week for New Show Plus.
It like happens. Yeah.
Right. It's like, all right, put your money in your mouth. Let's put it in the poll. Like last week we're joking about like, oh, maybe we can like it would be fun to have a show where we just play the lowest reviewed first person shooter games of all time. And it's like, all right, well that's gonna be in the poll this week for New Show Plus. Here we go. It feels like we're kind of yes
We're
anding
Alan Wake
with
2.
oh, what's that?
We're Alan Wake 2.
Oh my God, we are Alan Wake
Roasted.
too. We're Alan Wake as well. But I think that also carries forward just for like, I think of the stuff that really sticks with the community from podcasts. And it's really interesting that like, maybe it's a bad sign that I'm thinking back to like the Game Informer era, but the stuff people always would cite for us for the Game Informer show was, talking to fans, you'd be like, oh, I love that bit about the greatest work of art of all time. Or they would talk about like the things that were recurring bits or discussions across like a month of podcasts. Just like, oh, if there's a
Yeah.
community question that has a joke that's really funny, we keep calling back to it. Like that stuff really sticks with you. And I think that's what makes for a fun podcast. And so I do like as much as possible trying to have these connective threads between the podcasts. Like, I really do enjoy it when people write into the podcast and they reference like something that happened last week or a community question from last week. Because I think the more you can kind of stretch out those things instead of everything just kind of being a one and done conversation, I think it helps
Yeah.
be a stickier podcast for people in their minds.
That happens too with the streaming too, because like when I was playing Control, I know because I listened to Kyle on other podcasts that he loves fonts. So I was
Right,
like,
right.
and then fonts come up, and I'm like, oh, Kyle would love this. And of course, like everyone in the chat was like, yes, he would. And like they loved that because it's like I know that Kyle likes fonts, and the only reason I know that is because I was part of the community. I am part of the community still, but you know what I mean. Like
Yeah.
up until I became community manager, I was part of the community too. So it's just like fun. It's like an inside joke all the time with everything. In a way, it sort of feels like.
Yeah, for sure. Speaking of which, on the New Show Plus front, thanks everybody for letting us hit our goal for New Show Overflow. Thanks to all your subs on Twitch. We hit that goal of 300 subs. And I was really happy with how quickly we were able to turn that out. It was like, was it the same week that we hit it? We were able to crank out that episode of New Show Overflow, I think. Which again, it makes me feel good. And so thanks to everybody for hitting that. And if you're not hip, New Show Overflow, the idea is if we hit that sub goal on Twitch, then we revive a rejected idea for New Show Plus. And it was an episode that we pitched in October of 2022 called I Want Candy, where originally it was going to be Sarah Podorsky and I going to Minnesota's largest candy store and doing a whole in-person episode for New Show Plus. And so that was on the docket. I definitely wanted to get back to it. We have other really good options for New Show Overflow for in the future when we hit that goal and stuff. There's one of them that I'm really excited about. Maybe it involves game stores. Who can say? But yeah, it was really nice of Dan Reichert from Giant Bomb to be up for that. And I was talking to him a little bit about it. It's just like such a nice, refreshing feeling because I know he's stressed. He was setting up for like his Extra Life stream, but still to be like, hey Dan, really early on Thursday morning, would you mind driving a super long way with Leo to go to this candy store and do this thing? And he's like, yeah, absolutely, no problem. Because his angle was like, okay, you're gonna pay me and I get to have all the candy I can eat. Like this seems like a win-win. It's like, yeah, it's a real win-win-win because MinMax wins, Dan Reichert wins,
So Dan
the community
fell for
wins.
the get in this car, I have candy.
He literally did. He literally did exactly that. That's exactly
Leo should have
it.
pulled up in a white van.
Oh God.
Yeah. So thanks everybody for throwing those subs our way on Twitch and making New Show Overflow happen. We've reset the clock, and so the next one we hit will also be reviving a rejected idea for that whole thing.
I just got my Giant Bomb tickets for their Game
Oh,
of the
wow.
Year live show.
I saw they're like switching to a bigger venue, which seems like
Yeah.
I didn't know that was an option. You can do that if you've sold out a venue.
I don't know. Well, I guess so. Like they did it, so sure.
That's cool.
Sure.
That's cool.
Wow.
Oh, real quick too on the tech front, that New Show Overflow with the candy thing. It was interesting because we started streaming it on Thursday morning, and
I
it was,
watched this
Did you?
start of the stream.
it just
So funny.
it started out and the quality was impeccable, and then the second they go
Out there out of the car.
Yep. When they're out of the car, it starts dropping. And then when they go inside the candy store, it was like freeze frame nightmare town. And so at that point, it's like, you know what? Just switch to a local recording. It'll be all up there for YouTube. And then that audio or the video and audio quality was so good on that local recording. I felt it. There are a couple comments talking in there about like, God, like all New Show Plus where their streams, the quality is so rough. And so like, I wish they could all be pre-recorded.
Yeah.
But then again, I think the energy changes when you're not live streaming. Like, I think if we live streamed that whole thing, it would have had a completely different energy. And you might like the
Yeah.
live stream energy. You might like the more chill, like off air energy. Like, it is a pretty chill video of just Leo and Dan making jokes in a candy store, which I really enjoyed. But it's like, is there some way to have the best of both worlds? I think it'd be more of a tech nightmare. But I was thinking about like, yeah, live on location is a vibe. Thank you, Hazard. I completely agree. And so it's like, is it overkill to have two phones then? One's recording locally, one is streaming, so we can still have the energy from a live stream, but then for the archive on YouTube, it'll be pristine quality.
That's a lot of editing work, though.
Well, it's not really a lot of editing
Isn't it?
work. I think
No?
the tricky part would be for the person who is running the stream, the little person in the little box window, right? That's kind of interacting and reading chat. Like their audio needed to be recorded separately, and so I think setting up that tech, it would be kind of a mess. So Kath says she likes how raw it is. It's fun. It feels more personal. Yeah, so it's something that we'd have to work through tech-wise. If there's
Can we
not
just buy like a streaming backpack?
Yeah, we can. If you want to help me figure that out, that'd be great. Honestly, I may be too stupid, but I was looking into it a little bit. It's like, okay, you need to have that, and then also you need to have like a phone plan or a phone card, something for that. But then also there's situations of like, it's not like Wi-Fi would magically spring up, as far as I understand it, perfectly in a situation like being inside the world's biggest candy store. Or Minnesota's biggest candy store. I think just the signals suck so bad inside of that tin roof that I don't think even that little Wi-Fi hotspot you set up would do jack crap. I don't think. But again, if there's techies listening to this that can help us out on that front, I'd be all for learning about it. Haley, can you tell us about Canadian Thanksgiving?
Or
It was
Thanksgiving,
a month ago.
as you know it.
Yeah, Canadian Thanksgiving, Canadian Christmas, Canadian Halloween. It was a
Canadian
month ago.
birthdays.
I guess I don't know. Like, it's kind of just a reason to relax for a weekend. We don't really. You make turkey. You make the little hand turkeys in kindergarten. It's probably similar vibes. We just do it a month earlier, which I don't really know why our Thanksgivings are so separated. Perhaps
Yeah.
Neil knows.
Neil, are you a Thanksgiving expert here?
I am not. But I was going to respond to that call for techies to talk about Wi-Fi.
Oh, yeah, yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
yeah.
Please. Enough about this Thanksgiving stuff. We get it. Canada,
Stupid
Haley, we get
Thanksgiving.
it.
I know.
Okay, so I mean, I have a little bit of experience with this because I had to test a bunch of Wi-Fi hotspots for my work. Part of one of the things that my work does is they send people out in the field to collect information that they have to phone home to deliver.
Okay.
So the thing about mobile hotspots is generally they connect to the cell network better than phones do because they tend to be larger and their antennas tend to be more attenuated to that. Plus, you're not holding them, which can block some of the signal. So that's better. The second thing about it is if you set up a mobile hotspot somewhere you do have signal, like outside in your car, you can then transmit that Wi-Fi network, broad enough to cover, a building, or at least part of a
Right.
building, especially if it's a small shop that you're just walking into out of a parking lot.
Okay.
So, I mean, at the risk of undermining your authority,
No.
I think in the specific scenario of the candy store with the roof, a mobile hotspot could have actually been the solution to that problem.
Is that right? And how does a mobile hotspot work? I need to have a phone plan for this, what, backpack that I have to wear around? Or what is it actually? What would it entail?
The ones that I've used are kind of small brick-like devices. They kind of look like battery backups. They honestly look like phones without screens that are a little thicker. At least the one that I used did.
Yeah.
It's a device about that size. They do tend to just be like a battery with like a router and a Wi-Fi antenna, like all in a package, and that's basically it. They're kind of at least by modern standards, dumb devices.
Okay.
At least the ones that I've used have been.
Okay. All right.
And yes, it does require some kind of phone plan. You might be able to add one to your existing phone plan. It is going to depend on the quality of the mobile network for whatever phone plan you pick. So it's going to depend a lot. It's going to depend a lot on those factors for, where it's going to cover and where it's going to be good.
Yeah.
It's very possible that if you did go this route, that the phone plan that would be best for whatever local Minnesota stuff that you guys are doing isn't going to be the phone plan that's going to be best for, I don't know, something Janet might do in LA or Haley
Right.
might do in Halifax. Is that where you're at?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good point. And yeah, that is tricky too, because if Janet's doing another stream from LA, then it's like everybody has their own hotspots, and but we don't really know where we're gonna be, and so yeah, I'm trying not to be lazy and make excuses. Anything that can make those streams better, I am all for. It's just I looked into it a little bit and my brain started to bleed. But then again, I'm very stupid, so I can give it another go. But thank you, Neil, for your expertise.
Yeah, and in fairness, there is a lot going on. You're the only full-time person, and you'd be managing all of this. So I don't think anyone
Sure.
would blame you if you didn't want to get into the weeds of this
Well,
stuff.
we
just wanted to put
should.
the information out there.
We should make time, but I appreciate that,
Oh,
Neil.
don't let him off so easy. all
Yeah,
right?
come on, be brutal. Come on, it's the only way we're gonna
I'll
get
let
better.
Jay
If
give you a hard
anyone
time
should
about
be suffering, it would be Ben. Like,
I
are you kidding?
completely agree. That's been my life philosophy for a very long time now. Okay,
Yeah, Too
cool.
often people are ready to be like, "Oh, I don't know if the boss can let him figure that out." Okay.
Sure.
Like,
All right, thank you, Neil.
Thanks,
Also
Neil.
Oh yeah, sure, no
Trufo-
problem.
Trufo in the chat had the same realization I had in the Twitch chat, which is that Haley, your name is Haley Fax because of the Halifax thing. I had
Yeah.
no idea.
Really?
Yeah, no.
I mean, fair. Unless you know where I'm from, it doesn't make the little thing.
I
doesn't
was
make
thinking,
sense.
like, I don't know, you're like, in law, like they probably are still faxing. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I was like,
I
Haley's just
love
really into
old
fax
faxing.
culture. Yeah, absolutely.
I refuse to email. I only fax everything.
Smart.
Yeah,
Smart.
I'm like, this is like, what makes her who she is. I guess I don't know.
I've had the name Haley Fax since I've been like a teenager doing my Adventure Time Tumblr blogs. Like it's
Nice.
just been my name forever. I don't think I'll ever change it.
No, it's perfect. You don't need to change it. Let's see. Shout out to the community for the game jam that's happening in Max's Discord called Minhacks. That was going throughout all of October. And there's been a couple community streams where everybody showed off what they've checked out. Haley, I know you checked out the first one and you seemed very impressed.
I was so impressed. They were amazing. All of the games were so good. There was well, I won't spoil it, but there was one
Yeah.
board game that I'm like, I want to buy this. How can I buy this, please? 'Cause I want to
Whoa.
play this with my friends. And they made it available on one of the kind of those .io kind of vibe websites.
Sure.
I don't have the link, but it was talked about in that video, so you can go find it. I want to play that with my friends. It looks so fun.
Yeah, we'll definitely show all that stuff off. So if you remember, I guess it was last year, Jeff and I streamed a bunch of the games that the community made. And so we're going to be doing that again. Not the same crew for the streaming crew, but a different crew. But that is likely going to be happening next week, where we're going to be streaming the community's games that they made in the Game Jam and putting it on MinMax's channel. So I'm definitely curious to check out all that fun stuff.
I'm excited to see your reaction to them, Ben, because there's a few that are like, I don't want to spoil it. I won't even say
Okay,
anything
yeah,
else, but
no.
I'm excited to see what you say.
I was so blown away last year. Honestly, I thought it was just going to be a thing of like, okay, there's a couple loose ideas, half cobbled together levels from Dreams level of thing, and then like
They're like ready to pitch to a publisher vibes.
Yes.
Like it's crazy.
it's really wild. Even like, I think of that one, or I think was it the first one we played, where you're like, it's a platformer inside of Trivia Tower, and you're like climbing Trivia Towers. Like, this is so
I remember
cool.
you playing that.
So yeah, we'll be checking out next week here at MinMax, so get ready for that. Speaking of Trivia Tower, that is coming up this Tuesday, so the 21st at 7 p.m. Central. We have Chris Person from Aftermath, who has been doing highlight reel for a while as well. It's a whole indie media push here at MinMax, which is nice. So Chris Person is going to be joining as the co-host for that episode of Trivia Tower. This is behind the scenes stuff. If you really want to go into a brain, I'll just complain about all this stuff. It's not complaining, we're just talking about it. But I'm fascinated by like Trivia Tower as a show, and at what point we've kind of saturated our market for potential new players in Trivia Tower. Like, I think the last episode we had that was like a regular episode, because I guess Tournament of Champions was last month with Ash Parrish, which was a really fun episode, but it was kind of a funky theme with Tournament of Champions. Oh, I think it was the one with Mike Mignotti from Giant Bomb and GamesBeat and everywhere else. Like, when we did that episode 2 months ago, is one of those things where I noticed like, maybe like 2 new Patreon supporters came through. And there was a moment of just like, oh, I'm scared of that future of us just doing Trivia Tower, which is a big show, takes a lot of time to prep. And then it's like, okay, if we're not finding that new audience for this show, how would we potentially reach out and find a new audience for Trivia Tower? And the easy answer is doing more of those crossover episodes, which are typically the most popular as well, where it's like us versus Easy Allies or us versus Nextlander, where we get their community to come in on a temporary basis and compete. And I know that people in the MinMax community sometimes can be frustrated by that, of like, oh, that just lowers our odds of winning even more because there's this wave of other people playing. But it is a really nice opportunity to sprinkle in there just to get a potential maybe new audience for Trivia Tower. But Janet, I know you're a fan of Trivia Tower. How do you think we would find a new audience for people to click through and compete?
Ben, you already know my answer.
Do I?
Yes.
I don't.
No, you don't, because you haven't
don't.
responded.
I don't remember what it is.
TikTok.
Oh, TikTok. Sure.
Yeah.
People eat
my God.
up trivia on TikTok. Blessing once told me, he's like, I swear to God, we could do Kind of Feudy as its own TikTok account, and it would do like way more numbers than even Kind of Funny's account. But they don't want to do that because they want to, and more so they just want to like have it be, we're Kind of Funny and we do like X, Y, and Z, not like, oh, we only will post what's like most popular kind of thing. But like all those videos do stupid numbers. It's like one of the most fun things to do on TikTok. You can duet to things. Like, I feel like that's no brainer.
We have. I mean, I think they could have been better produced on my end, but like we have shared a lot of Trivia Tower clips on TikTok, and it's one of those things of like, oh, it's not blown up, therefore it's a failure. But it was one of those things like, God, I thought this type of trivia thing would do better. But again, I think a lot of that comes down to presentation.
You gotta do like original, because the thing is, you're just posting clips from Trivia Tower, and those are fun too. And I think you could still post those, but I would post straight to cam. You're Ben Hansen. You're giving us trivia that we can do in TikTok. Like,
right.
That's based on either stuff that literally was straight from Trivia Tower, if you don't want to make new stuff, or again, you make one show that never airs that's purely for promotion. You record it, and then you just start. You can change your outfits if you want to show that's a different day, like pretend it's a different day.
Yeah.
And then you have that be the format, and then you let people know either at the. I'd have to think about if I'd want to format it at the top or at the back, probably the back of the video of you can compete in a full-scale version of this over on patreon.com/MinMax with 2 N's.
Right.
For $2, whatever.
Yeah,
like you
that's
think
so
of what the
smart.
plug is, and then boom, there you go.
Yeah. Yep. I think you're probably right. I mean, what I was leaning towards was thinking like, oh, do we do an episode where it's just live on YouTube, and instead of in the Discord for like this one-off weird episode, maybe even a shorter episode, it's just we go from YouTube chat. But that's kind of a similar idea.
Well, you have to keep in mind that, like, again, TikTok, like, it has to be, you should look at every video and be like, would someone who's never seen anybody, doesn't know anything about any of this, find this entertaining?
Right.
And the answer has to be yes, or you need to recontextualize or re-edit the clip if the answer is not yes. Like, it can't be like, oh, I noticed that this is so-and-so from, like, no one knows who any of those people are, and nobody cares, and they already left.
Yep, that's exactly it, yeah. Let's see, speaking of finding a new audience, all that fun stuff. The interview that we did with Second Wind last week was our biggest video of the year by far. It was really nice. I think it's at 88,000 views on YouTube, which is a big deal for us. And it's fun to see that has got us 984 new subscribers just from that one interview, which is a very rare thing to have that many people click through. And I think it was kind of the similar vibes of like, all right, indie media, I'll subscribe to this channel as well. I felt a little gross about it, like in the beginning. And I was only called out a couple times in the comments, but a little bit gross about like, hey, they're launching Second Wind. You know, funny story. Second Wind reminds me of another company called MinMax, and they cited MinMax as an inspiration for doing what they're doing. So like trying to shoehorn herself into their success felt a little bit gross, but it's like at some point, you got to make the pitch for potentially an audience of 90,000 new people of who you are and stuff. So thanks everybody for bearing with us for those little plugs at the start of the interviews, which by the way, we just had an interview go live today as well. It's in the bonus podcast feed. You might be listening to it at the same time you're listening to this, which would be weird. But this was the oral history of The Simpsons Hit and Run, where we got...
watch that.
Yeah. So we got 6 of the developers from Radical Entertainment from back in the day to reunite to talk about that entire game's development. And so that entire video came about because of Jawar Hello and the Game Champion tier. So, at the end of the podcast, when we cite all these people like, hey, this person's Zachary Pliggy is the champion of Superman 64. All that stuff, we can't thank you all enough for supporting us at the Game Champion tier. And it's fun that this content is directly a result of Jawar Hello choosing The Simpsons Hit and Run. And then we had that big poll, and The Simpsons Hit and Run won the poll over on Patreon that people wanted us to make bonus content about it. And I wanted to go above and beyond for this one instead of just doing another stream where we just stream that game. It's like, oh, it'd be fun to do some interview about it. And so then it just kept ballooning and getting bigger and bigger, and it was a real nightmare to schedule, but we eventually got it. And so thanks everybody for checking that interview out. They talk about, the plans for The Simpsons Hit and Run 2 and why it didn't happen and all that fun stuff. So thanks everybody for doing all that. Should we take?
How do you feel, Ben, doing more interviews these days? I feel like you're doing a lot of them lately.
Yeah. We're kind of getting back in the groove. I feel good. I mean, I feel like I talk about this a lot in Patreon messages whenever a new supporter says like, oh, I supported you because of the interviews. It's like, you know what? There are days when I just dream about that of like, it'd be nice if my job was just doing interviews. Like if I just took like a month off and just like blasted as many interviews as possible, I think that'd be really...
You could.
I know. That's the fun part, and also the scary part is like, oh, well, you could do anything. You just got to carve it out and push to make it happen. And so, yeah, we're definitely back in the groove. And there are other, I mean, this is going back to the conversation last week, I guess, about, life stress and all that stuff. But there's so many opportunities for interviews at all times. And there's some that are like right there and so obvious and would be really fun and we're really... poised for this type of interview, but it's just a matter of like, but if I schedule that interview, how much will it deteriorate the health of my life outside of the basement work area? Not in a horrific way or anything, but it's just that level of like, all right, I feel like this Monday and Tuesday and a little bit Wednesday with the main show, but like this is kind of the last pocket of a really stressful period for me. And then it'll all be dormant until the Extra Life stream. I'm sorry, the Give to the Max stream happening Saturday, December 2nd. And then it'll be cool again, maybe for a little bit until Game of the Year debates, which are going to be happening around the middle of December is when we're recording them. So it's a question of like, all right, I have those downtimes where I can catch my breath a little bit. Do I schedule interviews for those slots, or do I try and relax. And so there is one interview I'm excited about that we just scheduled for like early December, and there's another one that's like, God, we'd be stupid not to do this. And so we'll probably try and schedule that again. But yes, I do really love it. I think it's a fun time. Haley, we should talk about the Give to the Max charity stream.
Yeah.
That is coming up Saturday, December 2nd. That was delayed, just so y'all know. This is kind of the substitute for the Extra Life stream because, as we've explained before, Extra Life means the money has to go to a children's hospital, and everyone on the team insisted, don't do it, don't give it to the children, don't give it to the children. No, so we wanted to find a smaller nonprofit. And so this year, we're doing a Give to the Max stream. And so that's happening Saturday, December 2nd. It's going to be a 25-hour stream from the MinMax studio. We're going to be rotating through a bunch of folks, and all the money goes to Connections to Independence, which is a good, very small nonprofit in Minneapolis here that's helping out foster kids. And so because we delayed it, and I felt bad about delaying it, and it's like, well, we should
Are
try
we
and...
announcing the surprise?
I
then?
think we're announcing the surprise. So we should try and make this a bigger event in some ways and do something fun to celebrate the end of the year as well. The announcement is for Give to the Max 2023, Haley.
I'm gonna go.
She's going to go, everybody.
Is that the way to phrase it?
I think that's
I'll
right.
be in person there.
Yeah, so we're flying Haley down to Minneapolis so she can join us for the stream. Yeah, so it's Haley, I don't expect you, and frankly, I don't even want you there for the full 25 hours. So as long as you don't have that assumption that like you're making this trip and then also you have to scream for 25 hours straight, that's going to be brutal. And so I still have to lock down that schedule and figure out the pockets where you can go take a nice walk around Minneapolis and catch your breath a little bit and get out of a stupid, stinky basement. People saying Trek to Max. Yeah, I guess so. You could call it. Haley Fax will become Haley Min. Yep, I think that's the way it has to work. Trufos
I
isn't.
think Haley Soda is definitely the
Oh,
from
that's
Baba
better.
Yaga.
That's better.
That's a good
Yeah.
one.
is the slightly catchy one.
That's right. Trufos says enjoy that first class flight, Haley. Yeah, I guess you booked the flight, Haley. So I assume that's first class, and we'll reimburse you fully.
Oh yeah, I splurged. Got the champagne in first class, all that.
We should
extra storage.
definitely have someone do that and just vlog it.
Oh,
First class Minmax.
Yeah, and then you play like the Steam Deck or something, and we'll make it
Ooh.
like, like the bougiest way to game or something.
we joked about that a while ago. Of like, I think it's when Serial was on for a podcast about that idea of. I do think it's a really funny idea, even though it's stupid, of like a New Show Plus option where it's just a
The
wildly
most
expensive thing.
New show.
Yes, so it's like New Show Plus, we book a first class flight that day to a location and vlog it. Like, that feels wasteful, but I do think it's so funny that if, and here's the weird thing too, Janet, and this is the weird part is like, we let Dan and Leo buy a bunch of candy at that candy store. And part of
Sure.
it was for like, oh, because Dan's doing an Extra Life stream, so it'd be fun to have that for all the people rotating through his house for the weekend and stuff. But there's definitely was a part of me of just like, oh God, if I was in the community, would I be upset about part of my money that I'm putting towards this Patreon being used to buy candy for Dan Reichert from Giant Bomb, But then it's always that level of like, oh no, but we could just say that money came from the ads because technically it's all going into the same bucket. So if you're mad about
Sure.
that, just pretend that it's from one of those 1-minute plugs that we do on the podcast. How do you navigate that?
Real quick, Crowboy mentions Min-Max train ride across the country. That would also be really fun.
Oh, that would be really
for a
fun.
vlog. And it's a little, you get more bang for your buck than you do from a first class flight. So
Yeah, that's
I
true.
don't know. I always wonder. It's tough because every now and then I'll see some like very infrequent, like someone mentioned, oh, I don't know how I feel about this. My money going to this.
Yep,
But
yep.
also for some of those people, I'm like, some of those people are false flagging. Like I know you can track down like who's who, but there are a lot of people, unfortunately, on the internet who will be like, oh, like I'm never doing whatever. It's like, are you even from here? Like I think you might just be, mad and yelling. I think generally, as long as you're doing content, I feel like
Yeah.
it's kind of neither here nor there. Like, yeah, I'm not gonna lie. Like my job can be fun. You know what I mean? Like that's not really a secret. And I feel like if you're mad at that, you might always be mad at a lot of things. So I feel like, you know what I mean? It's like, yeah,
Yep.
there are, for every trip to PAX, there's like a lot of times in my office for 12 hours.
Right.
And like that's not, you know what I mean? Like this is I get to do this in lieu of having, I don't know, health insurance or a retirement plan. So like I
Yeah.
don't really feel that that's that deep for me personally. That's kind of how I think
Yeah.
of it. But I don't know, what are y'all's perspectives on that?
Yeah, I mean, somebody in chat is like, are these rhetorical thoughts or are they actual people complaining? They're all just in my head, always just trying to brace for like, okay, what could potentially sour a relationship with the community? And I think like those types of like weird one-offs, like, all right, candy store, I think it's going to be worth it for the people who really enjoy that video.
Yeah, I think it's fine.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I've seen like I don't know how are we like I don't know if we want to get like all the way into stuff, but I did see
Sure.
someone say like I did like the Trek to Shrek, and they're like, I don't know how I feel about paying for someone's vacation,
Right.
and I'm like, okay, I don't know. I did not think of that as a vacation, as I was. Hey, I liked hanging out with y'all, and I had a lot of fun, and it was a great time. But I usually don't do a vacation by myself to meet my boss and my coworkers without my partner for multiple days. You know what I
Right,
mean?
right.
Like I was working, like, and if you're gonna feel like I wasn't, like, I don't think that's something that you know what I mean? Like I feel like if you are genuine about what you're making, it's like for
Right.
me, I read that and I'm like, this is just someone who had a complaint and
Yes.
they voiced it, and that is within their right. But I don't think that. I don't know. Do you have an opinion on that? Does that hit different for you? Like, I'm curious.
No,
to know.
I'm sensitive to that. If there are a lot of comments about that type of thing, and not about you in particular, but if there are a lot of people like,
Yeah.
I don't want. It's stupid that you paid for Haley to come down for a charity stream.
Yeah.
It's like if it was like a giant swell of people, it would be a moment of like, okay, should we reevaluate this type of thing? But I
Haley
don't.
should have walked.
Yeah, I don't know. I think also like there's. I don't know.
No, it's. I
Like,
think no. It's
I tend to. I'm like sensitive in the opposite way. Like I have a lot of defensiveness for like my colleagues and the work that they do.
Yeah.
And while I think it's fair to like have whatever comment you have, it's like, I even saw that for like, and because again I see like everything, right? It's like someone being like, oh, like I don't know, they went to Universal and they were like complaining a lot, like
Right,
they got to go
right.
for free, like they shouldn't complain. I'm like, look, and you're that's your opinion, that's valid, but I'm like, we worked for like days and days straight. And then also it's a theme park. Yeah, people are gonna like, we're not, they're like, I don't know, you know what I mean? And I'm like, that's just my genuine response to that.
Right.
I feel like,
Yeah, the
it's a little-
context. Yeah, that context is tough. Of like, yeah, everyone's drained. The idea of like, all right, now be funny at this amusement park. I feel like everyone's
yeah,
like, oh,
and like we
Christ.
still had fun and stuff, but
Yeah,
it's kind of
yeah,
like,
yeah.
I don't know. I think while people are entitled for their opinions and to complain if they feel the need to, I am also entitled to say, hey, this is the reality of our work, which some people genuinely don't understand as well. So like, I feel like I'm going to tell you my opinion. It might not change your opinion on it, but maybe this additional context is something that you didn't have
Right.
when you had that. That's sort of where I'm at. Where
Yeah.
like, I would get very defensive if anyone was like, why is Haley coming out? I'm like, I don't know. Haley is like one of the most important people at the company because her role is like the essential role in forming any form of company. Like it is like
Right.
the most important job you can have. Like that's why, you know what I mean?
Also, yeah,
But
and to
I
be
don't
fair,
know. I'm a little much,
Sure. Yeah, we don't need to. I think that it's so easy to do on the internet of like, or just in life. Like, I'm gonna have this argument in my head ahead of time before I have to have it in real life, and I guess that's just.
I do that too.
Oh, I mean, that's.
See, I just have the arguments in real life.
Yeah, I feel like that was so much time at Game Informer was like, driving into work and just like working through and preempting every possible argument I could have with everybody about everything. It's like, oh, I'm so glad to get away from that. So now to like do it with the community, I feel like we don't need to do that yet. People aren't outraged about Haley coming down and helping out with a big charity stream, and they won't be. But Haley, thank you for carving out the time. I know it's not easy to take that time off to come down to Minneapolis for a hop, skip, and a
No,
jump here.
thank you for bringing me down. I'm super excited. I genuinely almost lived in Minneapolis after staying there with like working for Game Informer. I love that city so much, so I take any excuse to go back there.
Oh, good. Oh, good. Yeah, so it should be a fun time. I got to lock down the schedule and all that fun stuff and tweak it for. Yeah.
Are you having are you guys doing any like Minnesota-y staple that, because Haley, you said you like it there, so you've had your Juicy Lucy and had seen the Big Spoon and things, I imagine.
I think I had a Juicy Lucy when we all went. This would be in 2016, it's forever ago. But Dan, Tack, and Ben, you were there. Kim was there. I think we all went, and I ate one there. And then there's something about chowder. I remember Dan Tack was very vocal about, was it clam chowder or some soup or something? I
Oh,
don't know.
boy.
This
I
is such
don't
a
know.
weird tangential memory in my head. But I think I had my Juicy Lucy then.
Okay, we can have more for sure. We can order them right to the studio. By the way, Kath, speaking of clam chowder, Kath says, "Hey, I'm too sick to talk during party chat today, but we hear you, Kath. So I want to know, what is your favorite soup for when you're sick? I'm getting out of ideas after the traditional chicken noodle ones. Split pea soup. Oh, that's gross. Let's see, tomato soup ain't bad. Tomato soup, and then you dip a little grilled cheese in it. That's
I'm an anti-soup girly.
yeah. I'm not
Really?
really wild about
Yeah.
soup myself, to be honest.
I don't like
So you're
drinking
Ben.
food.
So you're false flagging the soup then right now.
Yeah.
Is that what just happened?
I'm just pretending. I'm pretending that I like these soup options.
Classic Ben.
Yeah.
What with split pea? Like even people who like soup are like, ew, split
Exactly.
pea.
I should have known.
I
This
had that
is
a lot
the-
as a kid, I think, so I just vaguely remember it. But I will stand up for dipping a grilled cheese
You
in tomato
unraveled
soup.
really quickly though in that. Yeah. Like,
Oh, she's
we
allergic
thought the
to
soup
split.
community was gonna come after you, Ben, if you didn't name a soup.
Well, yeah, freaking soup Nazis over there. They're out of
Are you
control.
allergic to whole peas, Kath? Only split peas?
So
What is a split pea and what's a pea? Also, I've never thought of
know.
that.
what is
What do they
They
call
like
it
smoosh.
split
Do they smoosh
pea?
it? Is that what makes it split pea?
Yeah,
For,
but then it should be smushed pea soup. Why do they say split? Are they meticulously cutting every pea
It's
in half?
exactly in the middle.
for me for soup, I like pozole. It's like a Mexican
Ooh,
soup.
what's that?
It is. That's a great question that I'm not totally googling because I don't know what I'm drinking. It's like
What is soup?
yeah,
Frantically
no, I don't
Googling.
know. It's spicy. It has hominy in it. Those little like, it's kind
Oh,
of
the
like the little
cheese?
chickpea kind of things, like the little, you know what I mean? Like the little like, I don't know what they are.
Like
And then
cubes?
yeah, they're like little balls, right? Like somebody
Okay.
shout to me, what am I eating there? What is hominy though?
What is it?
I don't know.
I have no
But it
idea.
has like meat and then like onions and it's spicy. And then the other thing that I've been really big on eating because my favorite taco truck in LA has it is birria, which is like a meat stew.
Okay.
Normally with goat meat in it. So I have that and it's delicious. And you can also like dip like your tacos into it. So when I get the tacos, I usually get a little cup of the birria. And if I'm sick, I'll get like the birria as a soup. So it's like, you know, it has the meat in it. It's basically the only difference between the broth or the soup.
Philly Eat Steak says, have any of you felt pressure to adapt AI-generated content into your work? I recently was encouraged to utilize AI-generated plans in my work, and it makes me super uncomfortable. No.
I do not integrate it at all into my work. There's people getting like in a big trouble. Lawyers using AI to do stuff, and then it's like malpractice because the AI isn't good.
Oh.
It just like tells them wrong things. I think I mentioned this on an episode, but yeah, a guy in New York got like in so much trouble because he used AI to draft up his factum, which is like your argument that you sent to the court.
Yeah.
And the AI made up case law. Like it just made up case law.
Oh my
And so he
God.
based his argument on made up case law. And then the judge rightfully was like, what are these cases you're citing? And when they tried to look them up, they didn't exist. And then they realized that he just used AI and it like made up stuff for him.
Oof, that's
So
scary.
he got in big trouble. And that's kind of been like the big scary story that lawyers tell each other, like, don't use AI. Remember that guy in New York?
Remember that
Oh
guy?
God.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like I was thinking about it this morning, like, you know, because every morning I message new supporters on Patreon and stuff, and I was thinking about that idea of like, God, how do I make all these so customized that people don't think that they're AI generated? And then I thought about that idea of like, would this be tempting for some people to just do like an AI generated response of like, haha, thanks for liking the interviews, or ha, glad you're digging Trivia Tower, thanks for listening to the Game Informer show back in the day, and all that stuff. And so I have never used ChatGPT. Like I don't even know do I have to make an account? I don't even know the basics of like how I would use it. So I can't
I think
imagine
it's
it would
just
come
free
up.
and you go on. I'm pretty sure.
Okay. So
I think
no
there's a paid
login.
version, but I don't know. I haven't really like I've seen it be used. This sounds so like official. Like we're like I just want to get on record and say that I've never. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's not very useful. Like I don't. I think a lot of people lean on it who maybe don't feel as comfortable writing, and so they like want a basis. But I don't think it saves really any time for like someone that can write. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Like it's just like it's the amount of what you'd have to do to tweak it is gonna make it like not relevant. My partner tried using it once for I think I was trying to come up with a headline for something. He's like, oh well, like see what this comes up with, and I'm like, no, I don't like it because of 80 reasons, and I kept kind of talking about like, oh well, that doesn't work because of this, or like I can tell that it's generating this because it's pulling from this aspect, but it doesn't have the context of like these other parts. So no, the closest to like what AI usage for like my job, which is just content creation, is just the captioning, like auto captioning. I believe technically uses AI to do that. And I've used transcription AI as well. Like Rev has a AI transcriber before AI was like a big trendy buzz term.
I guess so.
But
Yeah.
other than that, I don't. And other than maybe like the, I'm sure websites I use have like Canva is probably using AI for the background removal in a sense, stuff like that. You know what I mean?
guess
But
so.
not like ChatGPT, like, what is game, and then like something
Yep.
comes out, like nothing like that.
Yep. Claudio writes in and says, hey, Ben, just wanted to say a couple things since I'm too busy to join live. I'm in the biotech field. I haven't read this ahead of time, by the way, so here we go. I'm in the biotech field and going through very similar paths as many people you had on the show recently. Started as a small startup, purchased by a big corporation, laid off this summer, starting a new project with my old team. Hope it goes well. Oh, that's wild. In the biotech field to have that same cycle. Everyone, it's basically, you're the giant bomb equivalent, Claudio. What a weird life.
A biotech company called Giant Bomb wouldn't be very good though.
It's a different feeling. They say,
Different vibe.
everyone instantly said Alan Wake 2 for the best game direction on Party Chat last week, but I have to once again say that Baldur's Gate 3 is very high up there in terms of game direction.
Yeah.
The task of taking D&D and converting its mechanics, lore, and customization into game could only have been done with amazing team direction and focus. It still blows my mind how well they captured D&D into a game.
I
Yeah.
very much hesitate. Like, I found that the hardest one besides Game of the Year. Like, that was the second hardest one. Like, music, I found pretty easy. Like, that all that other kind of stuff. But I was like, oh, they both are so well directed. But something about Alan Wake 2, it just feels more like it has a director. Like, and it's not even that it's Sam Lake specifically. I don't mean like one person director, but like one consciousness thought is like a through line through the whole thing. But Baldur's Gate 3 also is like amazingly directed. I can't like not argue that either. Ugh, I just love them both so much.
Yeah, so the description for best game direction specifically says awarded for outstanding creative vision and innovation in game direction and design.
See, that makes me think Alan Wake 2,
It
personally.
does too. I do think that category is tricky because it's like, I think he just, obviously the fact that Sam Lake's all over Alan Wake 2 leads that direction, but I do think it's that problem of like, all right, which is the game in the category where you're familiar with the creative director? Like, have you seen an interview with the creative director? They're probably going to win that category. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
that's fair. Yeah.
And I think we talked about it a little bit last week. Never mind, I don't want to bring it up too much, but like, I've listened to so many gaming podcasts where everyone's just like, oh my God, Ben Starr from Final Fantasy 16, Clive, he's such a lock for this category for best performance. And it's like, to be fair, Ben Starr seems like a delight. I think PR-wise, 10 out of 10. He is the most beloved man in the game industry right now, which is lovely. He seems lovely. Janet, I don't think Clive is like the best performance of the year.
Oh my God.
But listening
Ben.
to so many gaming podcasts, almost everyone I listen
People
to.
do love him.
I know,
read through
it's
that category too,
confusing.
and I'm like, this is the person I'm supposed to love.
Yes, and I feel like everyone's like, well, Ben Starr's a lock. Obviously Clive's the best. It's like, did you play the same Final Fantasy 16 I did? Like, Clive's fine. Like, but Ben Starr is just so personable that it's the greatest PR campaign I've ever seen in my life, and he's probably going to take that category, to be honest.
Yeah, I'd be shocked if he lost. Who's even in? Who else is there?
It's like
I don't know, it sounds bad, but,
Saga's voice actor,
Yeah.
Asterion from Baldur's Gate 3. He's in there.
He's amazing too. I love him.
Yeah. There's some.
Asterion has a chance. No offense to Saga, I just don't think. In between the games,
Yep,
like
I'm with you.
Was the reason that the Alan Wake actor wasn't nominated as well is because it's like the voice and mocap thing?
I guess so.
You know?
Yeah, that's tricky.
Is that the distinction there?
I think so. Yeah. Yeah. By the way, I guess we'll be a little bit vague, but we're on the jury for the Game Awards, and so the way that we do it is like it's a Google form that I send to everybody at MinMax, and it's like, hey, submit what you think should win each category, and then I tally it up and then send that back to Keely, And so it is very fun to, like, I've seen like a glimpse of where everybody's at min-max for some of these big categories, and there's some of those where
My vote was private. Why are you reading my ballot, Ben? I thought I
no,
was
it's not. No, it's anonymous. It's anonymous. But I'm looking at the numbers for like how many votes went to which game and all these categories and stuff. And it's interesting because there's times where I'm trying to add up like who voted for this. I'm trying to do that math, and it's just there were some surprises. Is all I gotta say for tallying that stuff up for where the overall min-max crew is at. It was very fun to see. But tune into the Game Awards, I guess, to see who brings home the gold. Let's see. Bob Buell, sorry, I know you had your hand up. Got to run for a meeting. Okay, catch y'all for the Giving Thanks Joke-a-thon tonight. Yes, Bob Buell. So we're recording the big Joke-a-thon tonight at min-max from the min-max studio, the beautiful min-max studio. So we're streaming that tonight at 8 p.m. Central on Monday at 8 p.m. Central, and that's going to be live on Twitch with all of us telling jokes. And then it'll be up on YouTube and the bonus podcast feed on Wednesday. It'll be up Wednesday evening, just in time for your Thanksgiving travels, hopefully, so you can listen to us.
I might have to record my last chunk of the Alan Wake thing locally and then maybe post it on the Steam archives then.
Oh, interesting. I didn't think about that.
Which isn't a big deal. It's fine because I've done the whole thing, so I wouldn't want to leave people who are watching the the Let's Play hanging at the end. But I don't want to step on your toes.
Really, Haley, you wouldn't want to not finish the game that you started streaming for the community.
I didn't stream all of Elden Ring.
I'm sorry, I was talking to Haley.
Oh, I
and
see.
I'm just clarifying her comment, Ben. But if you feel seen by that,
I feel
says more about
seen
you
and sniped. Okay, so Haley, yeah, I mean.
I'll record it locally. That's no problem. And I'll just put it on the Steam Archive channel. And that's a way for people who've never watched anything there to go see it. There we go.
Yeah.
Hell yeah. Always be selling.
And I think with that Steam Archives channel, I think all of the old streams are now up on that channel.
Oh, wow. Really?
Which means we did the tally. I think it was like 400 hours of content. I think they're all up. So now it should only be new stuff. If you haven't been to youtube.com/@minmaxstreamarchives, there was a lot to go through, and there's so much stuff that I just have no memory of. Like Sarah, a lot of it, to be honest, because like Sarah, before she was brought on as like a cohort, she was a streaming aficionado. I forget her exact title, streaming contributor, something. So like she streamed so much stuff. It blows my mind to go back and look at this. Like Sarah streamed 7 hours of Stranger of Paradise, Final Fantasy Origin. She streamed all of Resident Evil Village. There is a ton of Sarah streams that was kind of the last wave to get out there, but that's all available on that channel. And so now it'll all be new stuff. We're out of the archive phase. But Haley, yeah, maybe it'll be a little bit like New Show Plus, where you can like, before we take over the streaming channel tonight on Twitch, maybe you could like stream a little bit and then stop. Because I think like that live interaction is a big part of it, you know?
I'm going to see the new Hunger Games movie with my little sister. I promised her.
Oh, that sounds fun too.
And it's like 3 hours long. I didn't realize that.
Oh my God.
But that starts at 6 my time though, and it's 3 hours, so it'll be 9 when I only have to play 2 more hours. So if you're streaming that'll be 10 my time. Nah, it'd be too late, I think.
Okay. Yeah. Whatever works for you.
Unfortunately.
Yeah. As long as you're ready to go for the deepest dive. Yeah. We're doing the grand finale for the deepest dive on Alan Wake. Recording that tomorrow. So you have until today to lock in your final thoughts on Alan Wake and submit them over there on Patreon. There's a Patreon post. Before we go, Bill Jones has a comment that I only read the first sentence of, and it chilled me to my core. So I think it's a good one. Bill Jones says, thinking about how to expand min-max, I would ask, what is the goal of expansion? If the goal is to reach a wider audience, then my suggestion is to consider what community is a good complement to min-max, but I might currently not be aware of it. One such community might be sports fans. I enjoyed the episode of Yins playing tennis and basketball. I assume that's a typo. Janet was recently on the sports podcast of Remap Radio talking about her Chicago sports history. I enjoyed that sort of content and could see that as a way to bring in a new community that could gel well with the existing Midwest values of min-max. The question then becomes, is there a desire to provide more sports content, and how do you provide opportunities for that community to learn about it? That is just one example. What other communities do you think would be a good complement to min-max? It's interesting you bring up the sports thing in particular. I do think, thinking about expanding where we're at, like I feel, there's certain comments online that melt my heart, even if it's not directly intending to, but there was a comment on I think it was on Reddit that was talking about our interview with Second Wind. and the comment was like, they cited MinMax as an inspiration for Second Wind and the model, but like, I don't understand how MinMax works. Like they don't have that many views or subscribers on YouTube. I don't know how they have that much Patreon support. And that just made me feel good about that. I think of like, how can this outlet be that efficient? But I feel really good about that. And I do think, I mean, I can't really do the math. We have 3,600 Patreon supporters and 45,000 YouTube subscribers. So is that 10%, Haley?
Oh God.
Whatever it
asking
is.
the wrong girl.
Whatever it is. That ratio I feel really good about compared to a lot of other outlets out there. But I do think in terms of how we grow, I do think like YouTube, we have a lot of room to grow, and that makes a lot more sense for expanding MinMax compared to just looking at the community we have and being like, hey, everybody, if we pushed you, could we get you from the $5 tier to the $10 tier? Like that doesn't feel great. People have already been so generous. And so I think expanding on YouTube and hopefully finding a new audience for the Patreon will be the way to go. And I think you're exactly right, Bill, that it comes down to finding new communities to interact with. And some of that comes down to like, being guests on podcasts. That's really the best way I think for us to expand, is to have folks from the MinMax group being on other podcasts and stuff and spreading the good word, Black. But, specifically talking about communities, I think that's a really interesting idea because I feel like, I've focused on communities that I'm a fan of right now, and have been for a long time. So it's like, all right, Giant Bomb, I feel like we're mentioned on Giant Bomb enough that if you're a Giant Bomb fan, you should be vaguely familiar with us. Oh, thank you, Patrick Polk, who did the math. 6.7% of YouTube subscribers, if you want to be that literal, are Patreon supporters. I feel great about that compared to a lot of other outlets out there. But so it's like Giant Bomb, Easy Allies, kind of funny. To be honest, I feel like MinMax is a little bit saturated in all those. I feel like they get the idea. We're all on the same page. We're all in the same community. And I think there's outlets, looking at Second Wind, like their wild success. And it's like, Escapist was not on my radar at all. I really didn't follow a lot of their stuff. And so the question is like, are there other communities out there that I just have a wild blind spot to, that we could interact with more easily and then kind of cross promote MinMax through that? Like, Skill Up is one that I'm friendly with over there, and they have a huge YouTube audience. And so it's like, who are big YouTubers that we're friendly with that it's stupid not to interact with more as a way to kind of get the MinMax name out there and stuff. So
I am curious though, like
Yeah.
the first part of the question
sports stuff.
intriguing to me. The like
Yes, the why. Yes.
Yeah, which I'm curious what your answer is for that, which I don't know how much
Boy.
you've like. I know
No.
what like my answer kind of is, which I assume is part of your answer, but I'm wondering like, what is your answer?
Janet, that's the part that I said chilled me to my core, because I think there's a little bit of
Okay.
like, it's success. I want MinMax to be a success. Therefore, we need to keep growing. And it's like, am I falling into that classic line goes up conundrum just on a much, much smaller scale than these corporations, But it's like, there's the easy
Ben's
short.
like, we didn't hit our metrics, and then one of us just disappeared.
Yep, sorry. You'll never hear from Jeff again. He's thrown into a volcano. No, there is definitely the angle of like, we could use production help. And having a second full-timer for production help is definitely front and center in my mind. And I want to shout out everybody who was very nice, who sent a message last week. There are a lot of people who reached out like, hey, I can help with production. Thank you. I do greatly appreciate that. We have 1 to 2 folks in mind already and have already been talking to them about that type of thing, which we can talk about more internally soon. Yeah, so we already have some plans in that way, but it is a matter of like the second full-time hire is something that would be interesting to see what that would look like, how much would that help MinMax grow, and so that's an easy goal in terms of what is the goal of the expansion. Sure. But it's not a very clear path of like this to this, then full-time hire equals this. It's just still in that, because, to really go behind the scenes, there's a level of like, okay, we're sustainable, which is great. We're slowly growing, which is wonderful. But, and we've talked about it on Party Chat before, there is still such a leap from one full-time person to 2 full-time people. That is a big leap in every way. And so we're in that weird middle ground between that at the moment. So the question is like, what do you do? Because if you use all the resources as efficiently as you can be, then you're robbing the potential climbing up the ladder to get to that second full-time hire. And this is, fun money, financial math stuff, which is, messy to get into fully. But that's basically where we're at. So Janet, to answer the question, it'd be nice to have another full-time person, but that's a big leap. But that is definitely the thing that we're climbing towards, and we're not that far away.
And the only way we'll get that is sacrificing Jeffem in the volcano.
That's
Yeah.
right. Yeah, and we gotta
There
pray to our
there
volcano
was literally
gods.
no other solution, but this is what we came up with.
Yeah.
For that second full-time hire,
Yeah.
would that be the producer, or would you
I-
have that?
I think
like,
it would.
push-
I think production help would be the way to go for a second full-time hire. Is somebody who could focus on production help.
we finally get R. Barrett or Arcado?
It's a little bit that. Yes. Yeah. I mean, I shouldn't say a little bit that. It's exactly that.
A producer is really nice to have.
Right.
Not gonna lie, yeah.
Yeah, but I don't know, Janet, do you have thoughts on that? Is that a trap of, just, we want to keep climbing for the sake of keeping climbing? Or what do you think the goal of expansion for MinMax should be? Other than
Depends on
yeah,
what the
whatever.
vision for your life and then your team's lives, or what they want out of the experience. I would imagine, like, as someone that exists and makes money, my goal is always, it's half like quality of life, half like investing in the what I do, right? So it's like, if I had more money, like how I would spend it, and part of it would just be like, oh well, now I can like buy a sandwich without thinking about, like a couple
Right.
little, an aspect of that, right? But then there's also an aspect of, could I hire, someone to do parts of the work that I do, to then like potentially, the classic, like, if I spent $100 a month, in A, could I use that to then just make more money, like spend money to make money? So I imagine the business would be basically the same, where
Yeah.
it's like part, maybe a goal for where you'd have everyone be at financially, mixed with how to spend the money to also grow those financials, so then you can do stuff like, raise components of that while also hiring people to do different facets of the company that then,
Yeah.
continues to, you can have, like, you talked about the goal, and it could be like a means to a certain end, right? If your dream is like, I'd love to just be, the interviewer.
Yes.
And I'm on MinMax, the podcast, but like, I don't have to host and do all these things, then maybe like, that's part of maybe a goal. And then you sort of see, like, how do you get to those goals? Like, does it involve like only adding to, like, what's going on the outside, and then obviously talking to people internally and seeing what they would want, and having a mix of those things, which I feel like we have that on a micro scale already. Like, I think the way that the business is run is reflected of that, where you see, and hopefully the community can see, like, ways that we spend the money on things that are very directly work items, like, cameras, wires, PCs that can play, like, I feel like we're pretty transparent
Candy.
about the way we spend money into the business,
Right.
besides the train rides and plane flights and things like that.
Right. Yeah, that's all well said. Yeah. So it's an interesting question. I think growing on YouTube, I was thinking more about it, like, that should be maybe just a goal for 2024. And if we had more production help, the question is, what is the best way to use that production help for growing on YouTube? Because it's still a matter of like, well, we can hire somebody to make some catchy thing that might get picked up well in the YouTube algorithm, but like, I don't think that's valuable for MinMax unless it has some connection back to us and back to personalities. So then it's a matter of like, it's not just a one-person job. It needs to be like, okay, Janet and Haley, you got to work with this producer to make a video that's appealing on YouTube. Then it's a matter of your all's time and making sure you're compensated well for that. And so it's a tricky thing. It's not as easy as like, oh, get more production help, therefore we can grow on YouTube. Like everything needs to be interconnected and interweaving in a way that's kind of complicated to map out. But Creator Gaming does say that the expansion goal should be to buy Game Informer from GameStop.
That'd be fun.
It would be fun.
Like, I don't know. That's kind of like I like I mean, they say that maybe a little bit as a meme, but I do like stuff like that, where it's like, think of the craziest stuff that you would want to do and then kind of work backwards from there. Like, Yeah, I don't know. Like,
Yeah.
why not? Y'all talk about it so much. We might as well just own it. I feel like
Okay.
it just makes sense. This is the logical progression.
I'm gonna go look
And
at
then
our
would
bank
Kyle
account.
work for us twice? Like, what is, you know what I mean? Like,
Oh, that would be confusing. Yeah, 2 separate Kyle paychecks. I don't think we have enough money in the bank for that. But we could certainly reach
Yet.
out to GameStop and try. We can see how that goes.
we don't
Well,
have enough money yet.
That's
you know?
true.
Like,
Just some negotiation.
That's right. That's right, Haley. And we need you to do it. You're a lawyer.
I'm
Go
on.
for it.
Let's do it.
yeah, isn't there some loophole where we can get Game Informer for free? Get on that, Haley. Thank you.
I'll look at your old employment agreement, Ben, and it'll be like, if you are terminated, blah blah, you get to own Game Informer.
Exactly.
Like, hey, look at that.
Well, GameStop's not the
this in
smartest
here,
company.
you know?
Maybe they let us slip through.
Zuckerberg them. Let's Zuckerberg them good.
Oh my gosh! Finally.
All right, that's it for an extra long episode of Party Chat. Thanks everybody for supporting at the MinMax Council tier, submitting questions, submitting topics. Again, if you're wary of calling in and talking on Party Chat, there's always the option to send in a text question and a subject for us to unpack. I greatly appreciate it. But Haley, thank you for your time.
Thank you. This is fun.
Yeah, Janet, thank you for your time.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Thank you for your time, Ben.
Oh,
Thank you for your time, Ben.
hang on. This is a flip from the start of the conversation where you said the owner's work schedule doesn't matter, Janet, but I appreciate that.
I didn't say your work schedule doesn't matter. I said worrying about your suffering is not relevant.
I see. Completely different. Well, hey, Janet's going to be out the rest of the week for a Thanksgiving trip. I was planning to talk a lot about that, but I guess we're out of time. But I hope you have a safe travel there, Janet. Enjoy
Yeah,
the
thanks.
big
Yes,
Thanksgiving
good
stuff.
travels.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks so much, everybody. See you next week. Goodbye.
Bye.
All right, Twitch, let's send you someplace. Oh, kind of funny. Perfect. Let's keep interacting with this community as we've interacted with a lot. Let's see. Your super chats are answered, they promise over there. By God. All right, 3, 2, 1. Thank you, Raiders. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.